2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, where we are continuing our when animals or pets attack, I believe, themed month, kind of a man versus nature type of scenario, which I think we've been having a lot of fun with. And this week we have a very important movie from the 70s, which I'm sure Brandon will tell us all about. So why don't you tell us what movie you had us watch?
Well, today's movie is the Daniel Mann film Willard from 1971, not to be mistaken with the remake that they made a bit later. This one also had a sequel called Ben, which many may know from the Michael Jackson song, Ben. So this one is about a young man named Willard whose father has died, and there's nothing but trouble in his life. But in this trouble, he finds the friendship of two rats, Socrates and Ben. It was Socrates, right?
Yeah. Correct. And I do want to say that this is based on a book that was Stephen Gilbert's novel Ratman's Notebooks.
Well, he did have notebooks.
Yeah.
And
that was a 1968 short horror novel.
And this friendship turns potentially sinister as the overwhelming number of rats may become too much for Willard and his family to bear. So, with that being said, this movie is one of those movies that apparently this is the one underlined film you should not see alone. You know, above all the others.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is not only, Jake, is this your first time seeing it? And did you watch this alone?
I did. I broke the
bad
rules.
Person, yeah.
I'm a bad influence on y'all.
Well, I have
or maybe we're a bad influence on you.
Could be that too. It was indeed my first time seeing this one. In all honesty, I have planned on watching at least the remake for some time. And just somehow it just never really came around to it. Incidentally, I think I should quibble slightly with your description, Dave. The first two we watched this month were hardly man versus nature. It was more like man versus science. But anyway, this one was a little more old school, I guess you might say. Our main character, Mr. Willard Stiles, I think it was, or whatever his name. He had more of like, he just trained the rats. They just took the time to learn them how to talk human. Understand it at least. As we said before we launched, I usually think of Bruce Davison. I think of Senator Kelly from the I don't know what that was, where it came from. But anyway, Lost my train of thought. I think it's Senator Kelly from the X-Men movies. Like, I have not seen that many of his movies when he was this young. He was young here. It was a little different. And then, of course, you got Ernest Borgnine. He's always interesting. You got some other folks in there that I recognize. The Undertaker, J. Pat O'Malley. He's been in a few things over the years. Mortician, I guess I should say. Whatever. It's an interesting movie. I think it was slightly misrepresented. Watching this, to be honest, I did not think it was a horror movie. I thought it was more of a character drama, really. So it may be a dark thriller, but really it's a revenge story first and foremost. And you can definitely have a revenge story that doesn't cross the line into horror. And I really think this is more a thriller, personally. So I feel like I was a little set up to expect something different than what the movie actually was. And Willard makes a couple of boneheaded calls toward the end that turned me from rooting for him to going, you motherfucker.
Yeah, really.
And I didn't really like that twist. I didn't like how the guy that you spent the whole movie rooting for ended up being someone that you wanted to see destroyed in the span of just a few minutes. And then it ends on, it has kind of a nice little ending, but I really had complicated feelings about the ending. Let's put it that way. So it's interesting. It's good. It's well made for the most part. And I'm glad I finally saw it. I guess one day I'll have to watch Ben, and I still plan to eventually watch I know the remake. Crispin Glover strikes me as the perfect choice to play this kind of character. Because he is kind of creepy by definition.
Well, yeah.
Anytime I think Crispin Glover, I think about what they called him in Charlie's Angels, creepy thin man.
He's even creepier in American Gods.
I can imagine. But anyway, yeah. So it was an interesting movie. Glad I saw it. Not sure it fit the theme of the month terribly, but
Well, I mean, it was animals attack in a sense. I mean, the rats did attack.
Yeah. But I believe the month was originally put forward as horror movies with animals. So, that's kind of where my mind is.
It's still considered a horror movie by 70s standards.
Yeah, I see that. I can see that.
Just like next week's Food for the Gods, I'm not sure I would have considered that much of a horror movie either, but it is definitely a horror movie by the standards of the time. So, Tammy, did you watch this alone?
Not alone.
Was this your first watch?
Even Diego watched it with us.
Oh. He protected you from Willard.
He just was staring at it. I'm like, look at the rats. And he's just staring at the TV.
So is this your first time with Willard?
No, because I think the very first time I did watch it, though, was with David, but that wasn't this time. Because I've actually seen the remake and I've seen the sequel, and I actually own all three. But I don't think I watched any of the three until David turned me on. And then it was like we watched like all of them, So this was not my first time. It's been a while though. That's for sure. Yeah, I found it interesting, I guess I'm not one of those it's like squeamish about rats. Yeah, I don't care for them, you know. But I'm not gonna be like some other people going, "Ooh, it's a rat," ooh, you know. I just don't. I don't care for them. I mean, as a kid, I had a hamster as a pet, you know, more than once. But
Oh, rats make good pets.
my father had an albino one, and he named him Floyd, and he thought he was just so cool. And I was like, "Yeah, okay, Dad." But yeah, especially after working in the pet store, you know, it was just. I think it is. I think my big turn off with them is I don't like their tail. It just is like, ugh. I
There's
don't
a
know.
reason why
Something
rat tail. There's a reason why rat
there's some
tail is such a common word because it's so descriptive.
I just don't like there's something about their tail that like that's what like totally turns me off about them. You know, it's just I don't know. But yeah, it was interesting, you know, and how things progressed and how you know it was like almost like the rats, especially Ben, you know, seems to almost like become obsessed, you know, with Willard in a way, you know. So it's a kind of a weird portrayal, you know. It's you know we think of you know of us baby and our pets and like getting obsessed with our pets and babying them and doing everything for them, you know. We don't really think of it the other way around, you know, where the pet is going to go and do everything like to protect you or to you know it's just so it's kind of like a different spin, you know. And especially when the I guess you want to call Ben and um Socrates pets, basically.
Yeah.
So it's kind of different when the pets are the ones that are kind of like being obsessive.
Well, he does call them his friends, and you know, in a sense, they were more friends than pets. But
Yeah, I guess you want to look at it that way. It's it's just like a totally different portrayal. You know, they're not so much Socrates, but Ben, like kind of like running the show of things. You know, it's just like this rat is the one that's in charge of like everything. You know, and that it becomes apparent that he's the one that's you know calling all the shots. You know.
Yeah,
it's almost like he's the cat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chloe doesn't have much of a part in there.
Oh, and that was one of the things that was an early thing that made me go, Willard, what is wrong with you? But anyway.
But yeah, it was definitely interesting. Yes.
Yeah. Speaking of interesting, I just saw something here that I meant to mention in my intro or early on. When I was watching it, I saw it said Bing Crosby Productions, and I was like, what? But then I looked at this. IMDb said this was the first theatrical production from Bing Crosby Productions since its purchase by Cox Broadcasting. Crosby was no longer associated with it. I'm disappointed by this. I was hoping Bing Crosby was behind the scenes.
He was certainly actually. It would have been interesting to see his reaction to that because he was alive to see it. My name is associated with this.
Right. I'm dreaming at Christmas.
So, Tammy, do you have anything else for your
like Ratmas?
No, not at the moment.
All right. So, Dave, was this your first watch? And did you
Oh,
watch
no.
this alone?
It was definitely not my first time, and I can watch this movie alone or otherwise, if I really wanted to. But I, after watching the remake of Willard when it first came out on the Sci-Fi Channel, some years back. I looked into it, and there was an original Willard and a sequel. So I found bootleg copies of Willard and Ben, and had those for many years until the Shout Factory decided to bootleg them out onto discs. Well, okay, not bootleg, but they definitely remastered them and cleared them up.
I was going to
Definitely.
say the transfers on both films are amazing.
But I was just trying to be a little bit comical there. But you definitely get a very young looking Bruce Davison. You get more screen time with Katiana, nanny Katiana from Mrs. Poppins, the nanny that ended up leaving the children right away. She couldn't stand them. That was Willard's mother. So, and so I kind of feel like if the haunting without the haunting element, the way that that woman's in the haunting mother used to like bang on the wall with the cane, except this mother decided to use a bell to try to get him to come to her. That would be annoying to me if my mother did that. It's like if Psycho and the haunting and that aspect and a symbiotic relationship with rats kind of like had a combined baby, and that's Willard. But I enjoy the madness of it. I couldn't stand all the people his mother claimed were friends. Yeah. Other than that, I do and am on Willard's side up until the very end. Yeah. So it is an interesting relationship, just like when I introduced you guys to Charlie, or the movie Charlie, where that was a relationship with a rat, you know. And I mean, it didn't exactly go this way, but it was definitely interesting. Rats can often be very smart animals. You don't know how smart they can be. You know, they are good pets, and unfortunately, sometimes they can be much more smarter than you. And I think this was one of those, kind of reactions, So, hello, Dustin.
Sorry, I'm a little delayed.
Was this a first time watch for you with Willard?
No. So a while ago, when Shout Factory released this and the remake, I think I picked them both up. And this is about how I remember it being. I only first saw it a few years ago, back when I was doing my really heavy collecting. And it's still about as slow as I remember. But overall, it's still pretty. It's still a pretty solid movie, especially in the build up to the rat attacks. So, I have a pretty positive opinion of this, although it's not exactly. I'm trying to find the words here. It's good, but it's not something I would just throw on very often. So, I think I had already been somewhat spoiled because the concept of, you can control animals has been out there for a while, so it wasn't exactly new, and I think I'd even heard it referenced a few times in other movies and TV. So I think I appreciate it more as for its place in time, and the remake is more of the one that I think actually frightening. So
So did you watch this film alone?
yeah, definitely. I don't think I've seen the sequel, Ben. Well, I've seen it, I just don't have that on physical media.
Okay.
But it's I'm having trouble talking about this without mentioning as a standalone film, without mentioning both the remake or the sequel. So to me, it's like they all form some kind of coherent whole.
Well, yeah. I believe the second film, Ben, kind of deals with an entirely different kid, not Willard. So it can be explained as a standalone film, whereas the remake, which I didn't realize, Shout Factory had actually redone, or at least acquired it.
I can see it on the shelf from where I'm sitting. Yeah.
Well, I know I picked up the DVD of it, when it first came out on DVD. So I'll have to look to upgrade myself. But
A lot of Shout's titles from the last 6 or 7 years, a lot of them have gone in and out of print, and I don't know if that Willard is one of them. It seems like they get some of these for a couple of years, and then it just kind of poofs out of print. So,
okay.
but
yeah. Bring this back over to you, Brandon, to bring us into the plot.
So this one's so of course this was my first time watching Willard. I was introduced to this through Ben. I remember as a child, it was on TV, and I remember the Michael Jackson song, and there was actually a music video that had been made at the time to go along with this. And I was entranced with that and very horrified by Ben as a young child. But I wasn't also desensitized like many of y'all were at a young age to horror. So, I mean, it stuck with me for so long that when Shout Factory released Ben, I wanted to get it. And I'd never seen Willard. So I said, you know what? I can't just get the second film. So I ended up getting Willard as well. So this was my first opportunity really to check out Willard. And of course, I used it to watch this and Ben back to back because I love Ben. Ben is a great film. I'm glad to have watched it again. Willard, I am on the fence for. The main character is one that I am very much on the fence about. Because some points I can sympathize with him. Other points he frustrates me and irritates me. Though I do have sympathy for, I do empathize with Ben and Socrates, though.
Right.
They didn't do anything wrong in many estimations. They just kind of stood by their friend, and with that being said, I guess we can just go ahead and go. I mean, I did watch this one alone, but I wasn't too badly mentally scarred.
Well, that's good.
Because unlike my time as a small child, as an adult, I've been desensitized enough that this doesn't bother me. I would disagree with Jacob on the fact that I do believe that this one does fit the criteria. I do feel like it is considered a horror film back in the day.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of what terrifies people, I mean, The Exorcist was considered the most terrifying film of all time when it came out.
True.
Which I still find hilarious.
Exorcisto.
So, you know, I mean, and now we're looking at movies like Pickleball Exorcist.
Oh, dear God.
Gotta wonder if that would scare modern crowds. So,
Yeah.
you know. But Ben starts out as you've got this guy. He's lost his father. He works this kind of dead-end job for this guy played by Ernest Borgnine, Martin.
Mr. Martin.
And Willard is kind of always behind because Martin just piles the work up on him.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of a cross between one, Willard is a little bit slower in doing some of the work, but also he gets more work piled on him than anybody else.
Well, plus it's his father who actually built the place from ground up. So
that Martin kind of took out from under.
Right, which they never really fully explain what went down with the father, but you know that Willard, eventually he comes out and says that he blames him for his father's death. And certainly it doesn't help that everyone around him is like, you should just talk to him. You should be vice president. It just, yes. So he has all this pressure too.
And shoot, towards the end, Martin almost says straight out that he killed his father. Doesn't say it, but he comes close to it.
And it becomes very clear that Martin is a greedy, self-serving sumbitch. Like he doesn't have that many scruples. He clearly almost gleefully undervalues Willard. Like it's clear that Willard is far from a model employee, but that a lot of that is just poor morale. And that if his boss would actually, for example, pay him more, he would be a better employee. Martin is a very good example of just a bad boss. he's definitely that.
So, of course, Willard lives with his mother. And then his mother's friend also comes in to try and help out, though.
But she also seems to have a more than motherly fondness for him.
Yeah, they talk about creepy.
Almost creepy, yes.
Yes. Well, yeah. No, we're introduced. Miss Charlotte was, that one. It's like he gets home. We see him leave work. And Martin pulls up behind him to give him, just helpfully hand him some work that he had forgotten back at his desk. With his brown nosing suck up Brant. And then he goes home and it's a surprise birthday party with his mom and all of her friends. Yeah, that's not at all awkward.
Well, and the way they eat, oh my God.
Jeez. They were just horrible people, almost all of them.
Yeah.
Most of them were horrible. His mother and Charlotte were like two of the worst, but they were just, ugh.
Oh, and I invited your boss, too. Why did you invite my boss?
Yeah.
Mother?
Yeah. It's like, and then during the course of it, it's like almost in the same breath. I think it might have been the same person that said, let bygones be bygones, and then starts talking about how Martin stole the company and needs to give Willard he needs to make you vice president or whatever. And it's like, you just said, let bygones be bygones? What? Yeah. I don't know.
Well, a lot of this, Willard definitely has some issues with not just his boss, but his mother and pretty much everybody in his life kind of ragging on him. most of the time. He really is one of those people who kind of is overly passive, kind of shiftless, as you would say, but
He
also
almost seems like he's on the spectrum too.
As much as Charlotte annoyed the piss out of me, as much as I really wanted him to sick the rats on her, she did have one of the best lines in the movie where she's like, Willard is basically an extrovert, except it's all inside. It's like,
Well, I found his mom's friends all to be rude. Like,
oh,
this.
geez. They're horrible. And this is where you really do build up a lot of sympathy for him, because it's like I commented in the film, like with a mother like this, you know, but it's just the people that he had to deal with until Joan shows up. There wasn't anyone who was a positive force in his life, and most of them were horrible. And you do sympathize with them. And it's just, yeah. Yeah.
And I think that was pretty believable, with just how absurd people are.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm trying to figure out like a tactful way to say this. Like, I've been having a lot of experiences with people just being 170% like ridiculously unreasonable lately. And so, like, I think before when I saw this movie, I was like, wow, these characters are so unrealistic. And seeing it again, like now, it's just kind of like, oh, well, damn.
yeah, there's a lot more resemblance to real life than you would think.
Yeah. Well, they all had the there's that element that you see a lot when you've got the older generation talking to the younger generations. The older generations always feel like they have the answer. And what they fail to realize is that what was the answer for your generation is probably not going to be the answer for the people that are coming up, you know? And
They
it's
pretty much never know what they're talking about exactly.
yeah. And these people clearly didn't know what they were talking about.
Though there is one sympathetic character in this movie other than Willard,
Right.
and the rats, I mean, and that is the woman that is brought in as a temp.
Yeah.
Is that
Joan.
Joan Simmons?
Yeah.
And she comes in and she's actually sympathetic to him, maybe a little bit sweet on him, as they say, a little bit of romantic interest.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of helps him out. She's brought on because he's got so much work on his plate.
Mm-hmm.
He's there, and he and his family have this kind of fancy house that's kind of fallen down a little bit. Tell you the truth, they said the house is in such bad disrepair, but the house didn't look like it was in all that bad shape to me.
The house in this movie definitely didn't seem like it was in that much disrepair on the inside. I believe in the remake, it actually looked a hell of a lot worse.
Right.
But he and his mother do not want to leave, but Martin definitely wants him to sell that house.
Yeah. And later on, we figure out why. But Martin's not the only one. Like all these other people, like Charlotte and pretty much all the people, like the family attorney and the mortician and all of them, they're all talking about how, well, if you sell the house, you can get enough money to buy your own place. They keep talking about him selling the house like it's a foregone thing. And when the mother dies, they ramp it up tenfold.
Yeah.
And the whole time he's like, I'm not going to move. I don't want to move. This is my
Charlotte
home.
was already stealing the china when he realized that his mother was finally dead, which his boss had even told him about. He just said she was sick, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, he goes home and finds her picking out what she's going to take, and it's like, really?
I mean, yeah, and I understand why he went off on a lot of the people after his mother's death.
Oh yeah,
It's very understandable.
this is one of the areas where I'm going to say like the film surprised me, and I kind of felt just a bit cheated. I wanted to see some of those people get attacked by rats. I was very disappointed. I guess when we get further into the plot, I can say more, I guess, but it did not play out the way I thought it was going to. Let's put it that way.
I understand why they ramped it up the way they did. And
Yeah,
it definitely leads to the conclusion appropriately. But of course, we're putting definitely the cart before the horse on this. As we go back to where he meets Ben and Socrates, who were just kind of almost on their own at first. There were very few other rats with them. Willard was tasked to like kill some rats, but he ended up befriending them instead, especially taking a shine to Socrates, who he found was very intelligent, both of them, and responded almost as if they could understand what he was saying. So they said, instead of that, I'm just going to take y'all in and I'm just going to teach you stuff for food.
as you do.
As you do.
I think part of it may have been because his mom was freaking out. Like she was really upset about the rats. And he may have befriended them partly just to piss her off.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure that he just wanted to get back at her.
Yeah.
But what do y'all think of Ben and Socrates?
Well,
I like Socrates.
Everybody
Ben,
likes Socrates.
in the very beginning, was an interesting rat because he was like the biggest of them all, and at the time, in the very beginning, there weren't that many rats that he was feeding, but they multiplied.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed like they had several litters.
So,
like in the little amount of time that that seemed to have,
I figured
perspired.
longer passed than what they let on.
yeah.
But I also think that they called in their friends as well.
Oh,
It seemed
yeah.
like they were just coming from outside. I don't think they were
Yeah.
being bred there.
Well,
Some of them were.
Some of them were.
They definitely showed baby rats. But,
Okay.
Yep, they definitely showed litters in several boxes in several scenes over time.
But Willard does have chances to take them out. Like there was one time where he puts them in a pond and has them go over to the center of the pond, takes the bridge away, and starts to fill the pond with water to drown them with, which, by the way, is a very ineffective way to kill rats because they can swim.
Yeah.
I mean, if that had done that, they would just have been annoyed and then swam over to the side and gotten out.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
it was,
so-
but that was like that was the mom and all her babies, so she was freaking out. The mama rat was freaking out when he did that because it was her and her babies, But
Well, they
then,
played that
like,
for they played that for excitement.
but then he rescues them, and that's how he gets Socrates, because it's like that mama rat, like he felt like the mama rat gave him Socrates,
Yeah.
and because Socrates almost seemed more like a pet than just a friend. you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Ben seemed like he was like trouble from the beginning.
He was a wilder. He was wilder. Yeah.
He had like a
also
sinister
older
thing
rat.
to him.
Yeah.
See,
He's
Ben,
mischievous.
Ben was the what was it, black sheep, I guess you could say, of the group.
But also the one that all the other rats seem to look up to and follow his lead.
But he was the biggest and the strongest and all that. Plus, he was the smartest.
Yeah. Well, it's like Willard a couple of times was like, "How did you get in here?" You know.
But I do think that Willard missed a lot of opportunities in this because
Mm-hmm.
it's quite obvious that Ben really liked Willard and really wanted Willard to acknowledge him
Mm-hmm.
as like, I want to be the favorite. Which is really what it felt like, is that it felt like he and Socrates were siblings, and Socrates was the good son and he was the bad son, and he kept wanting to please Willard. Like he kept wanting to come with him to work and just, be there with him.
Mm-hmm.
I did notice that too. So I thought it was maybe a little on the nose, but also fitting that they were both like light and dark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But both of them obviously liked Willard.
Yeah.
I think
they were definitely pets too. I think.
Yeah. But Willard understands that he can utilize the rats to do some small things. And part of that, the first time he uses it, is when his boss just really gets on him, and he's having an anniversary party, and he got on him for not handing out invitations when he actually did hand out the invitations.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, okay, well, heck with you, I'm going to ruin your stuff. And he had Ben and his friends crash the party.
Yeah, right.
Which I thought was funny. That was the first step, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because after he moved Ben and his friends in the basement, the mother thought that he had been done because she ain't going in the basement with her health.
Mm-hmm.
But he actually he crashed the party and ruined it.
Yeah, that part was funny.
Yep.
And he and Ben and Socrates celebrated that victory.
Yeah, like how it was like simple kind of just hijinks at first. And it still took us a really long time to get up to that point too.
Yeah. I mean, the movie does do a pretty good job with character building as far as Willard goes. And that's one of the reasons why I said it didn't strike me as a horror film so much as a character drama. Because really, it is pretty heavily invested in building him up as a character, showing us what's going on with him and all that kind of stuff.
And most of the horror just comes from, oh my god, aren't rats gross? And it's like, these rats are mostly kind of cute almost. Like it's not
right.
It's not enough, you know?
Plus, they have that jaunty, old school, kind of almost Disney style music for much of it.
Well, I mean, if you know,
Right.
Which actually, if Willard had started singing and the rats were doing his bidding due to song, that wouldn't have surprised me at all.
Well, if you notice, in a lot of movies of the time, rats had been used as ways of projecting horror into movies.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean it's one of a handful of animals that is often used as shorthand for, isn't this horror? Isn't this terrifying? You know, it's like, rats, snakes, bats, spiders, those kind of things.
Which is not necessary. I mean, rats are pests like anything else when it comes to large numbers, like saying this. But, as small numbers, rats are actually very intelligent animals.
Yeah.
They can be very affectionate pets. Matter of fact, from what I've seen, for some reason, after I watched Ben, the spy bots that be started showing me a bunch of rat pet videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I'll admit, they bond quickly to their owners, and they can become very affectionate pets.
I wonder as well. Apparently, this came out in 1971. Apparently, 1978 was the initial radio broadcast of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And of course, anyone that knows that, spoilers for people who haven't read it or seen it, the rats are secretly, the mice rather, are secretly the ones running everything. And it's like, I wonder if this movie was in any way the inspiration for that. I don't know.
Of course, there is a scene in between everything where the girl gives him a kitten to
Yeah.
Because he's lonely and he could use a pet. Well, he's already got millions of pets down in the
But
basement.
he hasn't told anyone. And
He hasn't told anybody about.
And I have to say, Joan mostly is a lovely character, and I like her a lot. But she made a stupid ass move with that cat.
Yes.
One, you don't give people pets out of the blue as a present, especially if you don't know their home situation. If you don't know if someone even likes cats, especially if you don't know that they're secretly hoarding a whole bunch of rats that are their best friends, you don't just up and give them a cat.
Hey, you look pathetic. Here's a cat.
And so that was a really stupid move on her part. Now, I didn't like how he literally, I was conflicted. It was amusing and annoying how he literally gave the cat to someone and said, "Here, hold this a second."
Well, I will say this: he didn't kill the cat, and that's what I expected was going to happen. So that was.
Yeah, the cat does better in this than it does in the remake. That's for sure.
Yeah, I did. I
thought he was just going to let the cat go the first time I saw it.
Yeah,
he was just going to let it go wild, and I was like, "No, don't do that," So it was like, at least he plopped them in somebody basically arms and said, "Here,"
But I love that whole, like, he didn't exactly say it, but that whole idea of, "Here, hold this a second." And I'm like,
I'll admit, I mean, if somebody plopped that little kitten in my arms and said, "Here, hold this," and then never came back, I'd probably keep it.
Yeah.
Like, I have a cat now.
Yeah, guess I have a cat.
But
I don't like having cats on their own.
That was very stupid on her part to just, "Here, I got a surprise for you. Here, it's a cat,"
And it was sweet and well-intentioned, but yeah.
I think that what he did was kind of odd, but it wasn't.
Might have worked if she was in a deeper relationship than she was with him.
I feel like that was more on her than him, really.
Yeah,
because he wasn't going to take the cat home, but he didn't want to act like he didn't like what she did because he was sweet on her. So
it did put him in an awkward position, especially being as strong of an introvert as he was. Like, obviously, it's easy to say, well, he should have just said, "I don't want a cat," but he's such an introvert. It would have, and yeah, he was sweet on her. He didn't want to disappoint her, but it's like, yeah, she really backed him into a corner. But I have to admit, I didn't like his reaction much more than her action. So that whole episode was awkward. Chloe was a cute cat, though.
So we get to the point where the mother dies. I'm just kind of moving forward.
There was much rejoicing.
I do feel like I will give him this. He grew a backbone. He was basically, out of the house. Because he wasn't going to let them run all over him. That was the point where he pretty much decided he was not going to let people run all over him.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't going to sell the house. He was going to do what he could.
Well,
and then
it wasn't just her being a pushy busybody who seems to have creepy affections for him. He literally caught her stealing from him.
Yes.
And she'd already had the Undertaker come take his mother away. He didn't even know she was dead yet. And the body had already been removed. And it's like, I got to admit, I'd have been pretty pissed too if someone had just taken it on themselves to do all that. Like, yeah, it's like you're getting a little bit out of line there. Yeah.
But there's two items that come pretty much after that. One is he realizes that she still owed a mortgage on the house, and that there is a chance that the house is going to be foreclosed because of lack of taxes. He goes to try and see if the boss will pay for it, and boss ain't doing that. And tried to get loans from people who were like, no, we can't do that.
Well, yeah, he tried to go get a loan from one of her church guys, and he's trying to tell him, sell the house. And yet we probably know that she probably gave him a ton of money for that church outfit.
So he ends up having the rats, and again, I think that how they do it, yes, there isn't a lot of killing in this, but there's a reason for it. There's a method to it. It's a ramping up. The first thing was just as a prank. This time it was literally invading the house of an individual to take their money, so that he could pay those debts. And so nobody was hurt physically, but he moved up from just being basically, prank to grand theft larceny.
Right.
Grand larceny.
IMDb said something like this guy. This was a client of Mr. Martin's who was going on about, hey, I'm getting ready to go on vacation and I need $8,000. And, and of course, the secretary, who, by the way, was bonking Mr. Martin, had the completely tone deaf, oh, could you imagine having $8,000 to just spend on a single vacation right when he's just wondering how in the hell he's going to keep his home? And but yeah, according to IMDb, in 2023, $8,000 in 1971 would have been roughly $61,867.14.
Which,
that's a lot of money.
Which allows him to basically keep his home.
Yeah.
But of course, then he overhears his boss talking with his friend about how he's going to fire him and force him to sell the house so he can demolish it and build an apartment complex on that land. And this really thoroughly just makes him upset. So he goes to work knowing that he's going to be fired. And one of the biggest mistakes, in my opinion, he makes is that he takes Ben and Socrates with him.
Yeah.
They beg him basically to take him, but he should not have done so.
Yeah.
And then both of them are discovered, which then Martin kills Socrates.
No, only Socrates was discovered.
I can't remember. I feel like someone saw Ben, but
yeah, the secretary, Alice, I think it was. Yeah.
But Willard's next mistake is knowing he was going to be fired anyway. He should have stepped in to help Socrates since he cared so much about that one.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, already had been second thinking Willard and his relationship. Then Willard decides, you know what? We're ramping it up again, and ends up using the rats after confronting Martin. He uses the rats to kill Martin, who was the last thing standing in his way to stability. He's finally able to, confront him about his father and all this. And that's the thing, is it had to ramp up that way. Because Willard wasn't just this killer. He wasn't a killer at first. And things just had to kind of ramp up. And having the rats do something small at first and work up to murder.
Right.
I understand the way that they did it. And it also makes sense with what comes after. But seeing this, of course, this is probably what people were expecting for most of the movie.
Well, yeah. You knew Mr. Martin was going to get it.
He blamed him for his father's death, his mother's death, and the whole mortgage situation.
Well, see, part of what I was saying is like the film's reputation and the way it's marketed is as much to blame as anything else. Like IMDb, says to exact revenge on his tormentors. It's like, it's one thing to if it was just a character drama revenge story, and Mr. Martin is the target, fine, that's fine. But I really was shocked that the film didn't go further, because I was led to believe otherwise. Let's just put it that way.
But he leaves Ben, basically, and the boneheaded thing that he does, in my opinion, is he then drowns all the rats in the basement. All the rats that have already come to trust him, he basically he gets them locked in cages and drowns them all.
Well, he didn't just leave Ben. There were a bunch of rats that he left at the workplace, too.
Oh, yeah, there were a lot.
So
this goes beyond boneheaded. This was a straight up asshole,
yeah.
douchey, downright nasty thing to do. I mean, these were supposedly his friends. And even if he does have a lady love, even if he is poised to finally make his way in society, for him to just abruptly turn on all these supposed friends of his, rats or otherwise, that was not a good look for him. Let's put it that way.
I think that was the point of no return for him.
Yeah.
Killing Martin is technically the point of no return, but there was really nowhere else for him to go after that.
Yeah.
I do think that Ben would have reconciled any of his issues with Willard had Willard just said, okay, Ben, let's go back home. And then, they just did their thing on and on.
Yeah.
Shoot,
Yeah, but
Willard could have just gone on and started killing a lot of people, and that would have made the movie different. It would have been a very different movie.
Yeah.
I still couldn't afford the food for all of those rats. So we had to do something with them. I don't think that killing them was the thing to do, but Ben wouldn't also listen to him either on things.
No.
He was starting to not listen to him in general.
Yeah.
Well, he looked at Willard as more of a partner or a friend and less of a owner.
Right.
And it was definitely evident when you get to that point. He's got his girl with him, and he's celebrating, and then he realizes when he's in the basement, it is filled with rats again. And he's like, oh, crap. And he gets her out, right away. Which probably does save her life, if you look at it like that.
Yeah. I mean, even though she didn't do anything to the rats other than buy a cat, they didn't really have direct interaction with her. But yeah, he probably did save her by getting her out of there.
He's still there and in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Ben confronts him, bites his finger.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, fine. And he goes in and he buys rat poison and the food and doesn't mix it yet and just lets Ben investigate the rat poison. And Ben's like, hell no. And calls all the other rats, which leads to the final conflict where he's trying to take out Ben before the other rats get to him. Unfortunately for him, he does not get to Ben before the rats get to him.
Yeah.
And that's really how it ends.
Mm-hmm.
With him falling out the window to his death.
Mm-hmm.
With Ben looking on like, yep, that's what you get.
Did he didn't fall out a window, did he? I know Martin did.
Willard was found, at least at Ben. I could mix it up. At least in Ben, the police found him half chewed up, falling out the window of his house in the attic.
Mm-hmm.
They threw him out the window.
They're strong rats. You saw how high they jump.
Right.
They were literally jumping 6 feet in the air.
Right.
Those were Mexican jumping rats.
So that's the end of Willard. And I would like to say, after watching Ben, I would say that Ben is a sympathetic character in a lot of ways, to me, and I do think that Ben really wanted love and approval, which is why I think that Ben ended up becoming so fiercely loyal to the kid in Ben, because the child actually shows him the love and attention that he really wanted from Willard, who was kind of his parent figure.
Right.
But what did y'all think of the ending of this?
It felt very abrupt. Like,
Yeah.
the attack starts and it's like, I was good. No, freeze frame. And that's it. I will say, for a 95-minute movie, this did feel like 2 hours long.
Well, it was
And all about establishing stuff in the beginning.
Oh, it was a slow build, and but it definitely was intense by the end.
Yeah.
I mean, you knew that those rats were going to take him out. He should have walked out. He should have run out the front door instead of after Ben. got those extinguishers from the second movie with the flamethrowers.
Yeah.
Because they got a freaking war with the rats in the second movie.
Yeah, the ending definitely seemed a little bit abrupt, and to be honest, Willard did some stupid things. So.
Yeah.
Well, Willard deserved this end. I mean,
Well, betraying the rats again, like, that was just, I forgot he did that. Like, the whole time I was just like, why?
It's like I said, there's like a little bit of tonal whiplash there where you're like, you go from rooting for him the whole time to like the last 10 minutes, you're like, you bastard. And when he finally gets what's coming to him, you're like, okay, well, okay.
see, he already had the setup. How this should have gone is Willard should have come to Socrates' defense and said, yes, I brought these 2 rats with me.
Right.
And the guy says, well, you're fired. It's like, yeah, well, I heard you already. You were planning on firing me anyway, asshole.
Right.
And,
Wasn't
leave
the
it.
conference? What didn't he already? Didn't he? He? No, never mind. They got the slips on their desk after that, didn't they? Okay.
Yeah. So, then, take them back. Plan on, like, do a heist job. Make it into a heist film where Willard is, like, making bank heists and robbing the boss blind with the rats. That way he can feed more rats and use his army of rats to eventually take over the town as the new kingpin of crime,
Right.
with rats as his minions. That'd be almost like a comic book villain story.
And he could name one of them Ratigan. I gotta say, what was I gonna say? It is worth mentioning that he and Joan, well, Joan had basically been let know that she was probably about to be fired too, but both of them were given their notice by Alice during all the hubbub over the rats. She just dropped them on their desks, no comment, nothing from Martin. They're just, yeah. Again, it's like, well, that's a cowardly kind of dick way to go about it.
Tammy, you had something you were saying?
Yeah, I was just gonna say something towards what everybody was saying about how it ended. It ended a little bit more abrupt than I thought it was gonna. I thought there was gonna be a little bit more to it. That at least that they would have found. They would have realized about all the rats or whatever. You know what I mean? But it just kind of ends.
See, they could have made it into an origin story for the Rat King and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right.
But so that was Ben. Not Ben, Willard. Ben's the next time. We'll have to come back for Ben. I actually think Ben is a little bit more action oriented as far as the rats are concerned. But even then, I wouldn't consider it necessarily a horror film, unless you aren't really,
Actually,
prepared for that.
Brandon, and back up just for a moment of what you were just saying. Ben could have been Splinter's mentor, and they had a difference of opinion over how violent one should be, and Splinter went off on his own.
So Ben is Megatron.
See, what you don't know is that if Socrates had lived, Socrates would have gone on to be Splinter, and and Ben would have been the evil Rat King.
I don't think they ever explain where the Rat King comes from, at least in most of the different continuities.
I could see Willard as the Rat King. He'd have similar abilities, and if you think about it.
Sometimes he's a Lovecraftian being, so.
But with that being said, Willard, what did y'all think of the production for Willard?
I think they did a really good job with the rats. There must have been a fair bit of animal training going on there. They did a pretty good job with that.
I was poking around in trivia for this, and I guess this actually won some sort of animal performing award.
Huh.
Yeah. Rats are extremely intelligent, very easy to train.
I think Ben specifically was the winner of it for performance.
He was a likable character.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most likable character in this, other than Socrates.
Socrates was at least an interesting name.
Oh yeah.
And I believe Socrates was actually a poet from back in the day.
He was a Greek philosopher.
Yeah, a Greek philosopher, yeah.
Right. It is interesting, Brandon, you were talking before about the contrast between the two, but you think Socrates, you think kind of highfalutin, kind of, this is kind of the classy, like what have you, and then Ben, you're just like, that's a pretty ordinary common name there, Ben. It's like, it's almost like he was setting them up to be opposites.
Well, I mean, I think of Ben as almost a tragic figure himself.
Yeah.
Ben is a much more complex character than you would think. I mean, he's got obviously some sort of attachment issues. He's definitely he definitely wants to please Willard because he's being ignored for Socrates when he didn't want to. I think if Ben was also allowed to cuddle up with Willard, this would have been a very different movie at the end too.
Yeah, right.
Because I do think that, like I say, I do agree with the poster in this is that Ben would do anything for Willard because he wanted Willard's approval.
Right.
Like I say, he finds that love in the boy and in Ben in the sequel. That's not too much of a spoiler because it happens within like the first moments of the movie.
Right. I will say another issue with Willard, and this ties into his differing treatment between Socrates and Ben. Willard gets very snippy with the rats. The more he starts getting upset with Martin, the more he starts getting freaked out over the financial issues. Yeah. The more he gets upset with Charlotte and whatever, especially after his mom dies, but just as he goes forward, his developing a spine, his speaking up for himself, a lot of it comes at it's almost like the rats become kind of his release valve for his anger, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
He starts getting really nasty to them. And even before he decides to start drowning them. And I'm like, you could have played that a little better,
It kind of reminds me of the descent into madness that Jack Nicholson did in The Shining. Is you kind of it kind of went from 0 to 100 pretty quickly.
Well, I would not say
Actually,
that.
more like 70 to 100 because he was already mad and kind of I'm going to murdery at the beginning.
I was going to say Jack Nicholson starts at 70. He does not start at 0. Now, the Jack Torrance in the book starts at more like maybe 15 to 20.
Well, the Jack Torrance in the book definitely didn't flip the script quickly. He actually, it was a slow one, which is why people prefer the Kubrick version over the one that King was more on, because the one that King did that slow progression, and slow progression is not for most people. They want that quick.
I prefer the slow progression.
You know,
I prefer the Stephen King version over the Kubrick.
But
not that Nicholson isn't fun once he goes full crazy, but you know.
But this guy really did kind of come across as somebody who was ready to crack at any minute.
Right.
And it wouldn't have taken much to push him over the edge.
Right.
But what did the rest of y'all think about the production, about the way that they handled the house, the rats, all that?
I actually kind of liked the inside of the house, even though I know it was supposed to be in poor repair.
It's one of the nicest poorly repaired houses I've seen.
Right? I mean, except for the basement, maybe the attic. The attic and the basement seemed like they were in poor repair. But the general, living areas, they didn't look that bad to me.
Also, in fairness, one of the people who complains the most and loudest about the condition of the house is his mother. And, that's what parents do to their children that live with them, is they constantly complain that you're not doing enough to keep up the house.
Well, let's, I guess, move on to music.
Okay.
The problem with this one is I have a hard time separating it from Ben. And that's exactly why I should not have watched Ben after that. Because Ben, I thought, I really liked the music in Ben. I cannot remember the music for Willard.
The thing is, you have to remember it's kind of a standalone movie. It does not involve any of the characters in the first movie at all. It is a standalone movie.
Except for Ben.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, Ben takes place literally right after the events of the movie, and they even play out the last events of the first movie at the very beginning of the second. So they make it a literal sequential sequel to it, and actually play on the events of this movie and the sequel, with Ben's army trying to find places to go, being chased out of the house, trying to find ways to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it is a pretty straight sequel. I do think that if you didn't watch Willard, you wouldn't get as much out of Ben. You could enjoy Ben without Willard, but I think that you get a lot more background with Willard and understand where Ben came from, understand how the rats got so numerous, and all of that.
Am I remembering correctly that we covered Dragon Slayer on this channel?
Did we?
Did we?
Maybe I made that up. I don't know.
Let me see.
I know what we talked about before.
We, because I'm looking at this stuff, the composer is Alex North. And other than that, he's also the guy that did Good Morning Vietnam. He did Prizzi's Honor. There's a Jack Nicholson film there. He did the Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. So he's had some good music along the way, some good movies, I should say. But like I said before, with this one, I felt like it was a little too jaunty and upbeat for much of the film. And it really did remind me of the Disney films we did last month. Like it just, it was okay for the film, but it was not what I would consider to be the perfect fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I would call the music serviceable.
Yeah.
Like I said, to me, this one doesn't stand out for me. It must have done an okay job because I didn't go, oh God, why? I've had movies like that where I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, why did you pick that arrangement for this? But which was not the case here. It's just, I guess it was overshadowed by the sequel for me. The sequel almost had musical qualities to it. Well, I guess with that, we will wrap up. So I guess for the ending of this, favorite scene and let's see here. In the rat war, who would you take the side of in the rat war? Would you be on the side of the rats or Willard's family?
I would be on the side of the rats the entire step of the way, even when they killed Willard.
What was your favorite scene, Dave?
I guess my favorite scene was when Ernst Borgnine realized like all these rats were being controlled by Willard. Just his expression when he realized, oh, you were the reason why my party wasn't a success.
Especially his face when he's like, I'm in danger.
Right? Because he's just doing half sentences and doesn't realize his doom is already prophesized. So that would be my favorite scene. But my favorite rat is Ben. I would have to say either Ben or Socrates.
Well, you know what? Why don't we open it up further? What is your favorite rat of all time in movies and film and TV?
Ratman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Or Rat King.
How about you, Tammy? What's your favorite scene and what's your favorite rat character?
Let's see. My favorite scene. I guess my favorite scene is when the boss man gets attacked.
All right.
You know, because he just has, Willard all of a sudden has all this confidence and he just snaps his fingers and the rats move this way or they do this or they do that and then they come and attack him, It's like he finally had a backbone and stood up to the boss man and then, the whole thing
Poor
was
Ernest
down.
Borgnine. Nobody likes him.
My favorite rat character. Splinter's the good guy, right? In the new.
Yeah.
I like Splinter. I like Splinter.
All right. How about you, Jake? Your favorite scene, favorite rat?
Well, I think my favorite scene was probably when he sent the rats in to mess up the party. Because that really was more, like you said, it was more of a prank. It was more fun. But it also was well-deserved. So that was pretty fun. I like that. I'm not sure that I would swear to it that that's easily the number one, but it will go with it. And then my favorite, well, to answer your initial question, in the rat war against his family, my God, I'm going to pick the rats. There's not even a contest there. But, but I think if we're talking rat characters, I'm sure I'll think of one over later on that I could have thought of. But I think Splinter is going to have to be my pick.
All right. How about you, Dustin?
Well, when I think of rat characters, this is going to be out of left field. There's a rat in Magic called Ink Eyes, Servant of Oni. It's like a rat. It's like in the world that it's from. There are humanoid rats, just as like a common thing, and this one's a ninja, so it's like a rat ninja. And so that comes to mind for rat characters. Like I used to play it in a lot of decks before it kind of got power crept, but. And as for favorite scene in Willard, it kind of annoys me because everybody else picked this scene too. But the confrontation with Ernest Borgnine, and specifically the line, "Tear him up!" Because I remember that from the remake too, and I think that was cooler in the remake. But it is like kind of the big, all right, this is what you've kind of been promised by that movie poster,
right.
Finally coming out. And knowing that now that was Ernest Borgnine, that just makes some of those Simpsons jokes all the funnier. Because remember that one where they go like camping with Boy Scouts, and like Ernest Borgnine is like the guest like leader, and Borgnine's group just has all like the worst hardship. Like there's a scene where like Homer and Bart, or Homer's like opening a can with like a pocket knife, and Bart's like, "Where'd you get that?" "I stole it from that Borgnine guy." And then it cuts over to like Ernest Borgnine is like shielding a bunch of children from this giant bear, and he's like, "All right, kids, get behind me. Don't worry, I've got my trusty." And he reaches for the pocket knife and realizes it's gone, and he's like, "Oh." And the bear just kind of looms over them. I guess not survive, but just Ernest Borgnine made me thinking of that.
I guess I will actually also differentiate myself, not just in the scene, but in the rat character. So my favorite scene in this is where they ruin the anniversary party. I don't know why, it just cracks me up. My favorite rat character is Ratigan from the Mouse Detective, played by Vincent Price himself. I love the character. It's a rat version of Moriarty. It's just to me that is it's just that perfect Vincent Price smarminess with that kind of rat-like viciousness. It's a great character.
You know what? I'm going to change my
so soon.
favorite rat character. I'm going to go with Templeton from Charlotte's Web.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
There's a lot of cool rat characters if you think about it. I mean, you got Remy from Ratatouille.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
There's lots of rat characters in. If you think, I mean, I thought about some of the rats from gosh darn it, the Nim, Rats of Nim.
Oh yeah.
A lot of interesting things. Well, that's it for this time. I hope y'all enjoyed Willard, and I'm sure we'll continue with Dave, who was the one that's also chosen next week's show. So I will hand this back to him because he's the man in charge.
Alrighty. Well, why don't we go around and tell the audience a little bit about who we are and what we do. So let's start with you, Dustin. Tell them a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Well, I collect horror movie stuff here in Milwaukee. My channel is The Crypt of Horrors, which I have shot some new stuff for, and I just gotta have time to, upload it and do the thing. So we're kind of back. I also have an Instagram for my horror collection at The Crypt of Horrors as well. I need to start uploading there a little bit more. I've been toying with the idea of some things that maybe don't need a whole video. Like maybe I'll try doing a TikToks or something, if I can figure that out. And I can be found on Twitter with some frequency at DurCryptaxis, as you can see on my little name tag thing here. So, yep, just give me a follow, and, get me to start making content again, because if the audience is there, I'll do it.
All right.
And with that, I have to head out. So, night, boys.
Night.
Good night.
All righty. Heading over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay, I'm Kotobukijake. I am the sometime co-host of SeptumSin versus the World YouTube channel, where we are working hard on getting ready for the upcoming Versus Awards. And what's up?
Oh God, yeah.
And just generally working hard, keeping busy. I've got my usual daytime job, keep me busy all the time, but I'm always on the road or watching stuff or whatever in the various days off. And coming up, I actually am going up for a weekend conference. It's going to be very fun. I'm looking forward to that, going up to the mountains for a few days. And of course, I always try to find time to join these folks for our movie discussions each week, and been having some fun so far with this month. And yeah, there we go.
All righty. Heading over to you, Tammy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I go on this site, another one with David, and talk about movies with everybody, and check out ones that probably wouldn't have seen it. And it's very interesting, and I have my own collection. And summer's starting to come to a close, so not many car shows left, but that's what I've been doing over the summer.
All righty. Is that pretty much it?
Yep.
All righty. Heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I'm SeptumSin, a SeptumSin versus the world. We love our physical media, and there's not much going right now because, as Jake said, we are busy. Every bit of filming time we have is on the Versus Awards. Every editing bit of time I have is on the Versus Awards. I had to basically drop every project just to keep up. It's including my own personal reorganization project. But we're getting along. We're trying to get it done because it's going to be on September 30th, that Monday. I'm going to try and time it so that it ends around the time we start our discussion for that Monday, which will be, at that time, that'll be Monkey Shines. But of course, the other thing is we do have a pickup that we did manage to get out that's coming out this week, which has some pretty cool box sets in it. So if you like box sets, that's a cool one. And we get to take a quick look at what Disney is putting out. The Schlockaholics are back-ish again. We do have a show this Saturday, and we're going to be covering, what was it that Mo was saying it was? It's a movie I got to look up at Tubi. While I'm looking that up, also some of the cool stuff that we've been doing is they had a great discussion on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then the previous week we discussed Waxworks, which was kind of cool. So that was really neat. And this time, The Dead Next Door is what we're covering this Saturday. So check that out. Tabletop Horror, I'm having to give up on the Blu-ray release of that because there's just too much to do, and I've got too many other projects that I'm putting on the side. But it will debut next month, so you can look forward to that as we talk about tabletop and LARPing RPG films with me and Jake. It's we've got this is the first season of many to come.
Is that pretty much it then?
Yep.
Real quick. I knew this was going to happen. That I would think of some more Great Rat characters. So we got Megavolt from Darkwing Duck. He deserves a shout out.
I forgot about him.
What's up?
I forgot about him.
And then I'm going to have to say Splinter's probably still my number one, but I got to give a solid right behind him. I'm going to put Pinky in the Brain.
Well, they're laboratory mice.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess technically they're mice, but it's close. But anyway,
Alrighty.
they do have the best theme song of any rodent.
Pinky in the brain. Anyways. Well, my name is David Strege. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore, so thank you for coming along with us on this tabulous discussion that we've been having, because this isn't the only rat movie that we're going to be discussing as we amp up for next week, which I'll get into in a moment. But I do moonlight on a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where we are amping up to discuss Plan 9 from Outer Space on Sunday. After having done a discussion with what movie, Tammy, did we discuss this last week? Eight-Legged Freaks.
Yep.
And so definitely check out that discussion and hang out with us on Sunday for that.
Which
and then the original one.
Okay.
I always start with the original. You know me.
Yeah. So I didn't know whether y'all had covered the original on on Delusions yet.
Not quite, but
You don't have to do the remake after that.
I am planning on it, so I'm definitely going to do a twofer when it comes around. That way I can get both fun ones done. But in any case, those are what's happening on this Sunday. But I'm still working on a second anthology feature with Brandon here. Once we can get some time to go through it. I know we at least have at least 3/4 of a movie done. It's just a matter of like deciding what pieces go where.
We'll put our nose to the grindstone after the Versus Awards complete.
Yep. So that's still going on, but you can still buy copies of our films in the link down in the commentary section, if I remember correctly. I believe you can buy Brandon's Amityville webcam still. I believe you can buy the original short film and its various versions that led me to Tales of the Forgotten. And then Tales of the Forgotten itself on DVD and Blu-ray. So definitely check those out. Buy a copy if you want. They're still for sale. And I also do some video pickups and some video reviews from time to time, so definitely check out the channel of the Delusions of Grandeur. And then next week we're going to be discussing a movie called The Food of the Gods, which is done by a legendary Wisconsin filmmaker. Food of the Gods. Yep. And it's based on H.G. Wells' The Food of the Gods. It was filmed in 1976. And Bert I. Gordon is the director. So definitely look forward. I guess it's based on a portion of the 1904 H.G. Wells novel, The Food of the Gods and How It Came to Earth. So looking forward to that discussion. And we'll see you next time. So hopefully you get a chance to let us know what you thought of our discussion. Let us know if you've seen the movie. And we'll see you next time here on Inside Movies Galore. Everyone say good night.
Good night.